Good morning, class. Welcome to Homeroom with Unc and Market Monk. Morning, P. How was your week?
Good, good. Just had a really big winter in the ER room. I talked last week how I hadn't had one of those in a while, and ZS puts just went nuts on that day. When you can get a strike to go in the money before the market opens, that's pretty big because you can just cash it out. You get a little room if you want to, if you get maybe at two and you just want to, see where one can go. But yeah, those went, I think 150 to over 1,000. So just sort of, I just step back after that usually. No reason to do much after a day like that. And then LLY all week was on that, both sides of that one. Just, you got to hedge it and then the hedge takes off when it drops 3-4% a day. So yeah, that pretty much made my week. Um, just still clear out a lot of smalls. I haven't really bought a lot of those back in, so I'm looking for that, and I think I got a few ideas.
Nice. Second week in a row, been pretty adamant about trying to find one um, that made sense from your side um, that I normally wouldn't, trade. And,
Yeah,
and this week it was GTLB. Last week was AMBA, but those have been working pretty good for me. With
yeah,
just adding that into it, especially during these slow times when I can't lean on um, the stuff I usually like to lean on for day trades. And then PSNY was very scalpable last week. Kind of caught that dollar move about a week ago, and then just hasn't really. I mean, it's kind of stopped trend, but it hasn't really stopped the range. So I've been playing that good. And then Piton finally got to a point where when you have price targets in mind, you have plans. You sell a little bit, and so that was a good play there. I did add a little bit last week. AA and Next, kind of the two bigger positions that I'm adding to currently. Just kind of makes sense. They're again going against, not necessarily against the trend, but they're holding up in a pretty good pullback when most things are kind of in no man's land for the shares. So um, still kind of knowing how the market, like momentum scalping, damn near impossible right now. The news needs to be really good for that to work even currently. So a little bit longer swings off support, off stuff that's just getting relief in this market. I'm calling the halftime market right now. We're just kind of waiting for it to make a decision.
uh, yeah. And I just the if you're going to trade, I mean, I trade the first move on stocks quite often with options, and you have to understand that it is not going to hold that initial pop. Now, what's either going to happen is it's gonna it's gonna pull back, calm down, and go higher, which is what it had done for almost a year on a lot of those. But a lot of them are going to fade, and they're going to fade in a way that makes that secondary entry actually very dangerous because it will break down further, and then by the time you recognize it does that, you can't really enter that short. LLY on Friday is a perfect example of that. So you have to. I mean, that's why I hedge from the jump on those, and it's so it's really a difficult time to be trading options in that way. And I just think so many people see Nvidia falls 3 out of 4 days in the week, and it's like, oh man, it's gonna come back, it's gonna take back off. But then it'll just do the slow bleed, which is horrible for options in both in both directions. So there's so much of that going on, and at the same time, you DCA some of this stuff. I mean, I think you'll be fine. I mean,
Yes.
Nvidia, is you can DCA it down to the levels that we talked about, knowing it might not get all the way there. Might pop back up to 120 and then go. And if you get started and have a time horizon of more than 30 seconds in options, then you can really build something. So I think they kind of uh, um, is what you need. But yeah, the option scalping, the if we can call it skills, whatever skills a lot of these guys built of late are not going to be working for the foreseeable future, in my opinion.
I mean, man, that's a trend that I think will stand the test of time for sure. It's just a bias
Yeah,
of a learning confirmation bias. I'm sure there's a better word of when you
yeah,
learn in a certain environment that you now are stuck with that confirmation of the bias that you have. I had a note in general, just like when the setup's unclear, man, that shorter time frame is your worst enemy. And kind of use a little bit of a fishing analogy. I mean, you can't see through the water until you put polarized glasses on, and trading's kind of a little bit different where you put things on and it makes your vision unclear, or it skews your vision a little bit. And I think the number one time frame thing people have is the on too small of a time frame. Like they never get off. Maybe a 5 minute chart is big for them, and they don't make it on the hour, 10 day even. So they don't see the ranges or the trends, and you just get caught up in the movement of that morning, or whatever's going on. And when you're like, well, this has been consolidating here for a week. This is what it does, and I mean that's where you should be playing options, in my opinion, on the daily or 48-hour trade or whatever you're doing short term. But you
yeah.
still need to use an hour chart to get some pretty good levels. And I mean, a lot of times I see trades just like reject pre-market high or the high from the day before, and people just don't understand why that happened. And then you zoom out and it's in a clear downtrend, and you're like, well, those two
Yeah.
together should tell you what direction you're going. I mean,
No,
it's not that it's that simple, but sometimes it's that simple.
it is, and I mean, and so buy the dip doesn't mean that you just buy what's dropping. Um, it has to be in an uptrend that has passed some tests. I mean, it has to, have held
Well,
that.
that's
So it's
that's
not.
not that's not even where that came from though, P. That came from like the real dips when stuff would rip down like 20-30%. And then they're like, well, we
Oh,
can
right,
buy
right.
that because it's oversold. A dip isn't 3 or 4%. And that's why the zoom out's important, because that could just be consolidation inside a zone, or just where it's been the last 3 days, or just reclaiming a little bit from, a 3 day drawback. Yeah,
Right.
the real buy the dip was like 20 or 30% dips. Like, and then it just like, fuck it, we're buying this. It's too cheap now. So like that term is that's your oversold term for me.
Yeah, and I think that we talk about the mid candle recovery. We love that setup, and depending on what stock it is,
But to
and
buy a dip, it's real uncomfortable, like
yeah,
really really uncomfortable. And I do try to stress that to get people used to that in case it's offered. But those plays aren't out there. I mean, very rarely are those plays out there where you can buy something that just. What was the last one we had? And it wasn't even good. Was it Helena Troy?
Helena Troy, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's a dip. That's a fucking dip. Or the
yeah,
Humana,
yeah,
Humana, that was a dip.
right,
Um,
right,
I think Intel's a dip.
yeah,
But these like your 4%, moves on it in an uptrend, especially in an uptrend, that's not a dip. That's just some pullback, kind of needed. Um, Spy's probably a good example of that right now too. B.
yeah. No, I mean that we talked specifically about this exact number, this 540 area, and what that would feel like to people trading, and it's just it's a disaster, or they flip perma bear and start talking crash and to bring up the yen or whatever. Um, and we just saw it as this is a path we could hit. And then what happens with that is it usually happens sooner than we thought it would. Um, but uh, but the awareness of that possibility is what keeps you safe, and what keeps you in when there is a good pre market and it's like, oh, market reacted well to this data, that you don't really trust it. You especially don't chase calls. And overarching thing, man, find stuff that doesn't give a shit about what Spy's doing. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's kind of like one of the things that I think you have to do, that something that's kind of within its own little world and doing its own thing based on news, based on just the setup, how oversold it was. GitLab could go up and continue just because of where it was on the chart and how the flow was set up. And it didn't matter that QQQ dropped 2% the next day. So that's part of what the work is to me, is to find those, and you can escape some of the, so a SPY plays out and does what it's going to do, you can still find something.
Yeah, everybody that hangs out with me has one thing in their life that doesn't care about spy, because that's me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've stood on that for a long, long time. Currently, though, yeah, I don't think. I mean, we're always early, so I don't like to like stand on that always. But I mean, we again a week or two ago talking about the downside. The last downside kind of not necessarily called, but we had a pretty good idea where it was going to stop, and I think you're seeing that again. And last week we talked about the elevator down, stairs up, and it definitely feels like an elevator down. But um, I talked about the 50 SMA on the weekly chart last year, and we haven't even touched it throughout the year. That number's like 510 or 512. So I mean, if you just look at candle structure in that level, we're being nice if we say we're a third of the way there, just to check back to
Yeah.
that level from our high. And if you go back to the original conversations throughout the year, I mean, 560 was like the end game goal. So it's not really, it was where we are supposed to be in January after we had a lot more information on where our next president was going to be. Stuff like that was supposed to be taken care of. So a little over ahead of our skis there, but it doesn't like it's not shocking that we're rejecting 560 the way we are. And what are we going to do? Stay at 558 for 3 months? It's just not going to happen. We're going to pull back. And, that rotation of people taking money, kind of locking up profit for the year, that's just the storm we're in right now from what I see. And I mean,
Uh,
I don't see it. I don't see a change short term in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But the more we pull back, you're going to get those really good relief days, which are super tradable, especially from what you guys do. So,
Oh,
um,
yeah, absolutely. And I think that you have to look, if you're not going to break 560 and hold it, and the market likes upside, you got to have some fresh range
yeah.
to pursue that upside. And so that's what the pullbacks are about. And they can trap, and trapping leverage. I mean, that's the thing. I thought, you see it in crypto. It's so obvious that it's happening with the way Bitcoin moves, that we're just clearing out over leveraged traders. End of story. The 100x, 10x people. And But that happens in SPY too. And um, so a lot of these especially to reactions to data, where it's like it's going to pop up to the upside pre-market, and then just flush out, and it's just clearing people out. It's the market makers just resetting the clock, and just keeping things at a kind of the equilibrium they want to. And uh and that's kind of what I try to read. I don't do a lot of the to the second buy reads during the day or anything like that. I just think there's a lot of noise there, and I think that the levels Pac talks about and Goose talks about are better for that. But I see it happening within the stocks I do put in my notes. AVGO, Friday. I mean, maybe one or two of my notes will just say just simply down puts, like no nothing else. It's just like it's like this is just what I'm doing. I think it's going down, and then it dropped 4 or 5% from where it was. So that's just that's where we are. And I will say too, you talk about SPY being. I mean, we're still way the hell up there. I mean, AVGO, the level I really like the thing is 1200 pre-split, so 120. Um, we're still well above that, so I can't really go long shares on that thing until we get down there. And if we're going to go down there, then yeah, SPY is going to be 520 or thereabouts. So I'm open to that.
Yes, I think it was MSTR. I could be wrong. I know they got news, so it's kind of a cheat, but just up front. But I remember the thing was at like 1,000. It was up there. It was like $1,000. I don't trade it, so I don't know the price as well. But I was like, I'm not touching this till it's like 400p. There's another dip, but it was news
Yeah,
dependent on the
yeah,
dip. I do have a note here to talk. I mean, it's obviously just talk about crypto, but I do want to not a victory lap, but to walk through a little bit why we came to the 200 ain't shit thesis, which we've been victory lapping in
yeah,
collabs and stuff. But just crypto in general, where are you at on that? I know you follow it a little better than me.
yeah. So I I was going after the crypto miner bulls pretty hard, mainly, and it's not even that I like to trade a lot of those stocks, and I am. I mean, I see decent flow setups, but they're just if you bought out of the money crypto miner options at the top, like that combination of things, those positions are done. And if they're worth anything, you got to just get out of them. I think. I mean, your Mara 30 for I mean, yeah, for January and saying like, oh, that's got a lot of time. That's not a lot of time. 100% over 100% move at this point, and even if it moves 80% in 2 months, that position's still red just because of how options decay. But yeah, so I mean that not really surprised at all to break down here. I will say that I was looking for coin 180 to hold, and then that broke down MSTR 130. I mean, those are local pivots, and local pivots cut both ways. So once they broke down, I'm
Yes.
like, well, this is going to go significantly lower. Otherwise, that level would have held. So my thinking. Everybody's talking about 49. Um, Possible, but I think probably a little higher. Might flash under 49, but I think under 52 is where the flow is going to get really really interesting on those to turn back around. So um, yeah, I would never say Bitcoin's oversold just because of how it is, but I do think yeah, under 52, I think is probably where we're headed, and then it will turn around.
Yeah, I thought there'd be a little bit more of the halving panning out into earnings into the thesis, but I mean I don't really
Yeah,
follow that, but it seems just like since then it really hasn't moved the same. I, Again, I don't like to sit here and just say always early, but in any of these plays, Coin, Mara, MSTR, I'm a little unsure about, but all of those plays, we're still over 100% from our entries.
exactly. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
still, so if you were that late to the party, I'm sorry. Bad timing learning to trade crypto in the last 6 months, probably not the easiest, but if you've been on it for the whole ride, the charts were really giving. So the CLSK is the worst one for me, P. Like I don't. How are you
yeah.
bagged? How are you bagged in that one? Um, Makes no sense. I feel that again, coin's the blue chip. So I mean, eventually it's going to be a good buy again. I just was never really interested up at this. It seemed like it ran too hot too fast. The miners are a different story. I'm waiting for a reason for them to turn around because those are in way better shape where the charts are at. But
Yeah,
Bitcoin just seems like it's not really getting that pump anymore. Like it hasn't bled out, 3 4 weeks in a row. If you just look at a bigger time frame in quite some time, and we're there right now. So um,
so so okay, so with coin, um 72.50 was my average when the run started,
mm-hmm.
that first run to 180. And I sold all of it on the way up there,
Oh
and
yeah.
didn't have much left there. And then I was looking for another spot, and it was this 120 to 132 channel, if you can call it that. I mean, it didn't last very long. It was a couple weeks down there. And then that 120, that was where I said, okay, this is where I'm going back into it. And then it took off. And the issue was, in our conversation back then, 120 to 132 channel, if you can call it that. I mean, it didn't last very long. It was a couple weeks down there. And then that 120, that was where I said, okay, this is where I'm going back into it. And then it took off. And the issue was, you were kind of like, yeah, it hasn't had enough time here for me. And then it took off from there. And now as we revisit that area, I think now we have a little more history and can really kind of get something with our combo read. And I'm saying all that while it's 147, it's gonna go to 120. I think. I
Yeah,
think we're
yeah.
gonna see that spot again. I mean, and it's too tempting, or it's like a magnet, or whatever you want to say. That those levels as a spot of accumulation, had too much going on for it to not come back there, and that's why I see, coin is um, it is losing more than Bitcoin is. Like it's disproportionate. Its drop is disproportionate, and so when people see that, what they think is, well, that's the one to buy because it's getting it's getting unduly punished by what Bitcoin's doing. So it's a great buy. Um, I look at it from a different perspective, as in, okay, what options are they buying that is driving the selling, and where is it they're wanting it to go? And that's the zone I see popping up, the 120p, 132p, and or it'll be something stupid like 95p, but it has a lot of time. So from what else is
Yeah.
going on, I extrapolate where they're really wanting it to go.
Yeah, on that first pullback of the year, I wanted hundreds again or sub hundreds, and it never happened. We stuck on that like 118 level, right about 120.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, like you hit the nail on the head. There is some things to work with now that we've been through that price range a little bit. 235, 240 is kind of the top, the top. I
yeah.
guess not top. Pivot would probably be a better word. Good time to elaborate on pivot. Pivot isn't support or resistance. It's just a place where buyers and sellers rotate, and the price tends to fluctuate. Usually 3 to 10% on either side. So pivot's really good to play if you get a big pivot because it gets just that natural range. But
Yeah,
120, the 126 really does stand out, P. Like on the
and that's
downside.
right in the middle of my two lines
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So
So
didn't seen that before.
yeah. Seeing it go there. For me, that's when you like really look at the how quick the wicks last. I mean, if it shows up on the day chart, okay, we got some strength. If it's on the hour chart, we really got some strength. If it's on the 5 minute chart, it just didn't happen. And I go look at level two, and only like 30,000 shares were traded down there. It's
Yeah,
it's a ghost town. So I mean, that's where that will become a more stronger level. But it's being ahead of that kind of move that definitely shows our work. And it's simple shit. Like coin's probably not in the best shape of all the Bitcoin stocks, but it's the best
yeah,
Bitcoin stock. It's the blue chip, like
yeah.
Hut Hive. What's the new one we got? BTRD or
Bit,
DR? That
bit,
one, yeah.
bit deer. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, BITF. All those ones we find that sector. A real sector, those aren't going to be good in the long run. Those aren't hold forevers. But coin's probably going to be around for a little bit. So being ahead and finding a good established level on that on a chart that we both probably feel is 300 at some point in time. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I like it. I like it. But again, like you're saying, good example of last time. I'm just the slow EMA. The last time I had nothing for you, and this time I'm going to have a little information because we were active in that price zone for a good period of time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any boring stuff sector wise?
Yeah. So, uh, Copper is working on another test at 4, and you bounce there, and this will,
Oh, I'm
to
buying
me,
that.
be probably a leading indicator for a SPY relief rally. So that's one of the formulas I kind of look at. And I said, I would say, copper's not like in trouble to me, unless like 375, 380 breaks down in a kind of aggressive way. It can go under 4 for a bit and be and consolidate and be fine. But yes, that's one that I'm watching. Um, Oil. yeah, oil broke down from where I would think you would really want to see it. So I kind of needs to turn around pretty quickly. But I say that to say that I just add a couple months to what I'm looking at for for oil. I mean, a lot of those are in a really great spot on the chart. I keep dropping their flow in, but I would say it's into next year now. January, March, kind of where you're thinking.
It seems like we're stuck in a lower channel um, on the oil chart. Not that that's a
Yes.
bad, not that it's a bad thing, because I mean any kind of I mean whether it's 70, 80, or 90, stability is important in the market for those guys, from my
Yeah.
understanding. But we are on the bottom, on the lower side. Um, for me, I'm just pissed because it's not in. Oh shit, we're at 67 now. No, so like the 72 to what, like 80 window is where we need to sit. So this is
Yeah.
definitely broke. We broke a key level there over the last week, and I'm still four
Yeah. So that,
bucks. I'm pissed. I got Tesla though,
yeah.
so I'm okay.
Yeah. That's where, yeah, you're not seeing it at the pump. So you
Fuck
can't
no.
look at, you can't look at oil having a bad day and your 7-Eleven flips the sign down for you. No, they don't do that. But,
It's all
uh,
taxes out here. That's what I'm
yeah.
coming to
Yeah.
the realization is. It's just all taxes. Gas is like 42 cents a gallon, but it's 320 in taxes.
The, so silver, is one where I think you buy the pullback on silver. Um, Gold, um, a little trickier, still very strong. So wouldn't short gold, but kind of maybe more opportunity in silver still,
Is
and
20
uranium.
is 26
Oh
still your kind of pivot in silver? Because I know on the way up that was the level we needed to get through. Is
yeah,
that
yeah. I think it's 26, 26.50, maybe
okay?
that area for
Okay.
sure. Still thinking 36 is my target on that. So um, might be they're not. It's not. This isn't a semiconductor, so it's not. Doesn't have to be parabolic, but I do think it. I do think it climbs to that. Shares are better if you're in the mining stocks.
Yeah, some of those are set up really nice to be honest here right now. I just need the reason for them to go. They're not the 9 out of 10 on the street names, so market conditions
Yeah,
kind of help those guys as well. Um,
and uranium, the other one, trading at $80. We've talked before about how futures are structured a little differently there. Cannot follow a minute chart. It's just all backdoor dealings and whatever. But yeah, I mean those a lot of strength in those. A lot of new names popping up, and that usually is a pretty good sign in that sector that they're just going to try to scoop up everything that they can get their hands on. And you get a lot of this is where like option flow reading where people don't really know how to do it. There is a lot of activity that happens on the bid side that's not bearish because these are contracts nobody wants, and and so when you get kind of these big dollar amounts popping up, I'm like they don't with uranium at $80 and this stock just sort of stagnating, there isn't a reason to heavily short these things, and so they're not selling the calls. They're just getting filled at a really low price because those calls are just sitting out there. So I'm seeing some of that as well. So it's all the context matters a lot. But yeah, new names in a sector where the good names are in a good spot. I mean, all of that lines up to be a good spot to accumulate some shares to me.
I like that. What's your number on lithium? Do you have one? I guess I should have put you on the spot like
Um,
that. It's like
no,
70,
that's fine.
72,000 or something like that is the number. I'm just curious because that's one sector where I really like the charts, but I don't know shit about the commodity price or where the level should be, so I asked you. I'm assuming there's
Yeah.
other people like that in the room too. So
Right. 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 So no, I don't. I mean, lithium is just so it's just so in the in the dirt that I don't really have pivots on it. But I do. I just think that
I mean, would 10 would
it
was it 100K or is that maybe substantial or I mean,
the which one are you looking at for the price of it?
it just says lithium. I use Trading Economics because it has a pretty good list. It says lithium carbonate prices for this
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
seven
Futures
seventy.
are priced slightly differently.
Yeah, this is like per
So
ton, I think.
futures are $10. So it looks like they're on a. It's like
Interesting.
10. It's
Interesting.
10% or whatever that number is. Um, and but anyway, yeah, I think the it's at a 3 year low, regardless of how how you ever you
Yeah,
calculate it.
whatever chart you're
Um,
looking at.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I I really like those a lot for 2026 and beyond. Just because I think that the EV thing will settle out. Battery technology um, is, I think, going to be a big thing with batteries getting more efficient. Infrastructure for electric vehicles, improving,
Oh,
all
100%.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
100%.
And I think within that, those EV chargers, most of those are not going to make it. And whatever comes out of it through Tesla and GM or whomever, I mean, I think that will you'll get a kind of a new landscape there. So with that being said, like picking the right charger that you want long term is a lot harder than picking the right lithium stock that you want long term.
Yes.
So if you want to get in on the EV, it's Tesla at the levels we talk about, and it's it's lithium, and then it's also Rivian, Lucid, Neo, XPEV as trades um, when they're popping off. But if you're just bullish long term on the sector, I think it's Tesla and lithium, just at the right spots. And it's easier to get a good spot in lithium right now than it is Tesla. There's some uncertainty there.
No, I couldn't agree with that whole sentiment more. Just because they're going to win no matter who wins, and that's just a good way to look at it. I mean, it's
Yeah,
the safer route. Obviously, if you pick the best lithium stock and the best EV stock, and you get them at the best price point, you're going to have more range on the EV stock that wins. But it's going to
well,
be hard to pick that runner as opposed to lithium is just they're going to win as long as EV continues to grow, and it's your percentage might only be 10-20% a year on those trades, but they're gonna never come back. Where the EV is gonna have winners and losers. So I like doing that in general. Taking one step back in the supply line and attacking in general. So
yeah, no,
lithium just seems like we have to have it.
I did that with chips. I mean, it's why I bother with stocks like AMAT. That it's like, okay, so yeah, Nvidia is doing all this great wondrous stuff, but where do they get their stuff? And so to meet all this demand that they have, where are they making these things? And and a lot of those hold up better in the pullbacks too. So
Yeah, no,
uh,
it just goes back to what I mean before we even started trading. Like I would always use the summer market as like, all right, what's going to be hot, and it's hard to pick casinos, hotels. Is it going to be airlines? Is it who's going to win? Is it the new company like Top Golf that's something going to take off, or Sphere? Trying to find like the latest trends in the summer, or you can just trade oil because
yeah, yeah,
people got to travel to get to what they're going to, and that I learned that with Gush early on that
yeah,
I can try to like just pound the table and look for something and maybe right, maybe wrong, or I can just play the one that's going to move with whoever. So it's good to
yeah,
keep that in mind. Takes a little bit of stress out of it. All right, sir. Let's get into SPY here. We
yeah.
definitely. I don't know anyone that did, but we definitely didn't have as much downside last week. Kind of did good on the top. Um, you were a little closer than me, but the downside number we were still above 50. That so again, if we would have closed Friday, we probably would have been like, hey, we were close. But with that Friday pullback, we didn't know shit. Um,
Yeah.
it always a little bit faster than I thought. I didn't want to take this 532 last year, but it's probably in play this or last week, but it's probably in play this week. This RTL on the day chart. I'm hoping you have some strikes both ways for me today, though.
Um, yeah. So everything revolves around this December 500p, and so what it is like what's going to complement that. So that contract, it went from 600 to $900 on Friday. On the week, I think it was down below like 300, so 300 to 900. So they start buying that back up, and that moves again. This is the second big move of late on that one. So then it's like, well, what can I find that's um, going to complement that? And you know, finally, the October 520 is starting to stir, and I mean it's nowhere near like the okay. So the open interest, the reason I talk about this so much, the open interest on SPY 500p for December, 220,000, and the open interest is all pretty much dead on the other ones because they're so low, like 927, 420. I mean,
Okay.
that thing's gone. So, but so you get a lot like that. So it's like, what can I find that's going to complement this? And so, October 520 is pretty much the one, I think, and that kind of 1-2 punch is important. I don't really have a lot of calls for you. So on the other side, I don't have a lot to go on except there's some kind of short term stuff happening at well, you get like 550, 555, um, 920.
But
So
nothing
that's
at the last high
that's the
though.
no.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like we're in. I mean, we've seen it twice already this year. I just think
Yeah,
that's where we are again. A little easier for me to see in time since we've seen it twice. You watch that movie, you start knowing the lines to the movie. Um, I didn't look at it to be 100% honest. I didn't look at ER, but I know we're not. There's nothing like sexy this week that should push spy. There's nothing big like that. Am I right about that?
no. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go first just because yeah, I'm confident in what I'm seeing. But 543.69 on the top. Um, nice little shelf there on the 1 year, and not really scared to have a tight range on the top. You seen what happened last week? I mean, we lost it out the gate and never really. We didn't even hit a previous day high all week last week. That's why RTL is good. If you can't see the trend, just take the candles off there and look at those two bars, and it will tell you where you're going. But yeah, we didn't even touch a previous day high last week. I think that continues, and then 528.99. I do think we dipped below the 530, um, but I think that's where it finds a little bit of balance from this week. I I don't want to say we finish in the 20s, but I do think we finish closer to 530 than we do 540 this week.
Yeah, I like it. See what I got here. All right, so for me, kind of about if I'm seeing them, put something into contracts, like what is it going to take to keep those contracts relevant?
Relevant, yep.
And so I do think that that kind of that 532 area, um, kind of significant. So I'm going to say we flash below that 525.87, and 546.42.
A little bit wider range, but that scares me. But hit the alert button when you have even lower downside than me, and I was going pretty far down. So writing's on the wall
Yeah,
there. Writing's on the
yeah,
wall there,
right,
in
right.
my opinion. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, we grew up in a market playing relief, so knowing how to trade that is almost second nature. But
Yeah,
number one rule in that market is see green, take green. Um, yeah, because your entry's coming back, especially on those short term trades. So yeah, yeah. Anything you got here to end off?
I think so. So if if there's some stock you really like, you want to own, um, and it's still 15% or more over a pivot that you saw 6 months ago. I think you can get started, but you have in mind that it is probably going to go to that go to that pivot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's not every what people want to hear. It's not really the funnest condition, but if you build an average that gets you close to that pivot, 5 years from now, you're gonna be pretty happy. Um, so you kind of get in that mindset. Just if you're trading options, and I'm talking both sides in the note. Just understand it's I'm not saying straddle this calls and puts. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how you really protect yourself and why that's necessary. And I hope people have kind of seen that why that's necessary, given some of these drops
Yeah,
we've been having.
no, 100%, 100%. Weather the storm. That's a good thesis you should write down. One less is
Yeah,
more. Weather the storm currently. Perfect, P. You ready to get to work?
yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Anytime.
Like and subscribe for more links somewhere.